Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, everyone. Good afternoon, Jum'ah Mubarakah, and welcome to today's Friday Jam session here at Celebrate Mercy. We have Shaykh Ismael Essa joining us today for the recitation of Surat al-Kahf, and we have Shaykha Muslema Purmul joining us for reflections on Surat al-Kahf, as well a Friday lesson titled The Mi'raj of the Believer, Healing Through Prayer. We're very excited for today's session, and there will be a Q&A at the end as well. We'll begin in just a couple of minutes, but you have some time to share this flyer that we posted on our social media, on your social media as well, or share the link celebratemercy.com/Friday that you see on the flyer, in the running banner, and in the comments, inshallah, with your friends and family so that they can join us for the beginning of today's session. Here at Celebrate Mercy, our mission is to teach Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life and character through our words and actions to Muslims and friends of other faiths. And we do this through our webinars, our social media, our events, trips, and campaigns. So the first four are our words, and the last one is our actions. And we've had many campaigns in the past 12 years that have responded to national and international tragedies, responding to evil with good, helping Muslims and friends of other faiths. And this has gotten quite a lot of media coverage, alhamdulillah, all the positive efforts that Celebrate Mercy has tried to do in this world. And as well, we've had a lot of previous events before COVID, weekend conferences in different cities with different teachers, mashallah. And since COVID, we've had these weekly webinars, the Friday Gems webinars that you're watching right now, and as well, a lot of virtual conferences, one-time conferences with tens of thousands of viewers, usually repeating yearly, mashallah, and as well online courses around the Quran, the Prophet, Black Lives Around the Messenger, and as well many kids series, especially in the past year, mashallah. So you can see in 2022, we had 432 hours of new content. That's over an hour and a half a day, mashallah. So if you've been appreciating our work and want to support us, you can always go to celebratemercy.com/donate to give a one-time donation or to become a monthly donor if you are not one already. So once again, that's celebratemercy.com/donate. And if you are a monthly donor, you may always consider increasing your donation if you'd like. As well, we are seeking some help and support for 4 Muslims who have actually joined our February Umrah trip. They are on Umrah right now in Jerusalem currently. And our goal is to raise $15,000 in financial aid. If you go to celebratemercy.com/assist, you will see that we are just less than halfway to the goal. So it would help us greatly to raise these funds. They would be considered sadaqah to help our 4 dear brothers and sisters who have gone to this Umrah trip to cover their costs, inshallah. And as well, I'm really excited that tonight is the Ascent After Anguish Reflections on the Isra Mi'raj webinar. It's a special day here at Celebrate Mercy. It's the final Friday of the month of Rajab. It's Isra Mi'raj tonight. We have our webinar, and mashallah, I hope you're all excited for the great lineup that we have tonight, our incredible reciters and singers and teachers. So I hope you're all registered. If you are not registered, you can go to celebratemercy.com/Isra to register for this program and join us tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern to go through the experiences of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam before the Mi'raj, the Isra Mi'raj, and his journey of Isra Mi'raj, inshallah. As well, we have our final kids session tomorrow, Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. This kids session has been focusing on the journey of the Mi'raj of the Prophet, the prophets he met in heaven, and tomorrow is the kids' Isra Mi'raj celebration. So if you have kids and if they have not even joined any of the sessions so far, that's totally fine. You can join for the Isra Mi'raj celebration tomorrow. If you'd like, you can go to celebratemercy.com/Mi'raj to register. And we have 50 plus pages of an activity guide as well that you will get for free in your email, inshallah. As well, this is Isra Mi'raj Salawat Week here at Celebrate Mercy in this final week of Rajab. We wanted to see how many salawats you all can recite throughout the world in this final week. So you can go pledge how many salawats you have recited or want to recite for the remainder of this final week of Rajab by going to celebratemercy.com/salawat and pledging and seeing who has pledged from where around the world and they're reciting salawat, mashallah, throughout this week. As well, we've all been witnessing the devastating tragedy that took place in Turkey and Syria over 10 days ago. I believe the devastating earthquake that we saw happen, and Celebrate Mercy in collaboration with Yasin Tiru, who is a Syrian refugee who is a falafel shop owner, and his store was named the nicest place in America by Reader's Digest in 2014. We have collaborated with them as well as Syria Relief and Development to raise funds for the earthquake and to help launch emergency soup kitchens and provide medical support. Brother Yasin is in Turkey currently assisting through the funds we have raised. MashaAllah, you have all helped us raise over 195,000 in 1 week, whereas our initial goal was just 20,000. So if you have not supported this cause yet and you still want to support, if you are looking for different ways to support the help that is being given to the victims in Turkey and Syria, this is one way. You can go to launchgood.com/soup, inshallah, and help out there. You're watching our Friday Gems program live right now. We will begin shortly, so you have just a couple more minutes to share this link, celebratemercy.com/Friday, with your friends and family so that they can join us in time for this program. As our Prophet has said, he who directs others to a good deed is as the one who did it. We love sharing this hadith on these webinars so that we encourage you all to encourage others to join and benefit from these fruitful programs, inshallah. So sharing is khairing. You can also share our flyer on social media and link it to this live video by linking celebratemercy.com/Friday, inshallah. With that, we'll begin with the recitation of Surat al-Kahf, and we recite Surat al-Kahf every Friday because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has told us that if we recite Surat al-Kahf on Fridays, a light will appear for us from below the throne as high as the skies, and this light will help us in the darkness of the day of resurrection, and all the sins which we may have committed from the previous Friday until this Friday will be forgiven, inshallah. So with that, I want to invite Shaykh Ismael Essa to recite Surat al-Kahf for us. Shaykh Ismael Essa is the founder and director of Tartil Academy at MCGP, the Muslim Center of Greater Princeton. He is an Al-Azhar graduate with specialization in Quranic sciences and the 10 recitations. He holds many ijazat, certifications, for both reciting and teaching the Quran in all its 10 modes. Shaykh Ismael Essa has taught tajweed, qira'at, and Quranic sciences in multiple countries and previously served as the Taraweeh Imam and Director of Quran Studies at the Islamic Society of Central Jersey. So we invite Shaykh Ismael to the stage. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا فضربنا على آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا ثم بعثناهم لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى وربطنا على قلوبهم إذ قاموا فقالوا ربنا رب السماوات والأرض لن ندعو من دونه إلها لقد قلنا إذا شططا هؤلاء قومنا اتخذوا من دونه آلهة لولا يأتون عليهم بسلطان بين فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا وإذ اعتزلتموهم وما يعبدون إلا الله فأووا إلى الكهف ينشر لكم ربكم من رحمته ويهيئ لكم من أمركم مرفقا وترى الشمس إذا طلعت تزاور عن كهفهم ذات اليمين وإذا غربت تقرضهم ذات الشمال وهم في فجوة منه ذلك من آيات الله من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وتحسبهم أيقاظا وهم رقود ونقلبهم ذات اليمين وذات الشمال وكلبهم باسط ذراعيه بالوصيد لو اطلعت عليهم لوليت منهم فرارا ولملئت منهم رعبا وكذلك بعثناهم ليتساءلوا بينهم قال قائل منهم كم لبثتم قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم قالوا ربكم أعلم بما لبثتم فبعثوا أحدكم بورقكم هذه إلى المدينة فلينظر أيها أزكى طعاما فليأتكم برزق منه وليتلطف ولا يشعرن بكم أحدا إنهم إن يظهروا عليكم يرجموكم أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم ولن تفلحوا إذا أبدا وكذلك أعثرنا عليهم ليعلموا أن وعد الله حق وأن الساعة لا ريب فيها إذ يتنازعون بينهم أمرهم فقالوا بنوا عليهم بنيانا ربهم أعلم بهم قال الذين غلبوا على أمرهم لنتخذن عليهم مسجدا سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون خمسة سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب ويقولون سبعة وثامنهم كلبهم قل ربي أعلم بعدتهم ما يعلمهم إلا قليل فلا تمار فيهم إلا مراء ظاهرا ولا تستفت فيهم منهم أحدا ولا تقولن لشيء إني فاعل ذلك غدا إلا أن يشاء الله واذكر ربك إذا نسيت وقل عسى أن يهديني ربي لأقرب من هذا رشدا ولبثوا في كهفهم 300 سنين وازدادوا 9 قل الله أعلم بما لبثوا له غيب السماوات والأرض أبصر به وأسمع ما لهم من دونه من ولي ولا يشرك في حكمه أحدا. واتل ما أوحي إليك من كتاب ربك لا مبدل لكلماته ولن تجد من دونه ملتحدا. واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا ولا تطع من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا واتبع هواه وكان أمره فرطا. وقل الحق من ربكم فمن شاء فليؤمن ومن شاء فليكفر إنا أعتدنا للظالمين نارا أحاط بهم سرادقها وإن يستغيثوا يغاثوا بماء كالمهل يشوي الوجوه بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقا. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات إنا لا نضيع أجر من أحسن عملا أولئك لهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتهم الأنهار يحلون فيها من أساور من ذهب ويلبسون ثيابا خضرا من سندس واستبرق متكئين فيها على الأرائك نعم الثواب وحسنت مرتفقا. واضرب لهم مثل الرجلين جعلنا لأحدهما جنتين من أعناب وحففناهما بنخل وجعلنا بينهما زرعا كلتا الجنتين آتت أكلها ولم تظلم منه شيئا وفجرنا خلالهما نهرا. وكان له ثمر فقال لصاحبه وهو يحاوره أنا أكثر منك مالا وأعز نفرا ودخل جنته وهو ظالم لنفسه قال ما أظن أن تبيد هذه أبدا وما أظن الساعة قائمة ولئن رددت إلى ربي لأجدن خيرا منها منقلبا. قال له صاحبه وهو يحاوره أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب ثم من نطفة أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم سواك رجلا لكن هو الله ربي ولا أشرك بربي أحدا. ولولا إذ دخلت جنتك قلت ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله إن ترني أنا أقل منك مالا وولدا فعسى ربي أن يؤتيني خيرا من جنتك ويرسل عليها حسبانا من السماء فتصبح صعيدا زلقا أو يصبح ماؤها غورا فلن تستطيع له طلبا وأحيط بثمره فأصبح يقلب كفيه على ما أنفق فيها وهي خاوية على عروشها ويقول يا ليتني لم أشرك بربي أحدا ولم تكن له فئة ينصرونه من دون الله وما كان منتصرا هنالك الولاية لله الحق هو خير ثوابا وخير عقبا واضرب لهم مثل الحياة الدنيا كماء أنزلناه من السماء فاختلط به نبات الأرض فأصبح هشيما تذروه الرياح وكان الله على كل شيء مقتدرا المال والبنون زينة الحياة الدنيا والباقيات الصالحات خير عند ربك ثوابا وخير أملا ويوم نسير الجبال وترى الأرض بارزة وحشرناهم فلم نغادر منهم أحدا وعرضوا على ربك صفا لقد جئتمونا كما خلقناكم أول مرة بل زعمتم أن لن نجعل لكم موعدا ووضع الكتاب فترى المجرمين مشفقين مما فيه ويقولون يا ويلتنا ما لهذا الكتاب لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة إلا أحصاها ووجدوا ما عملوا حاضرا ولا يظلم ربك أحدا وإذ قلنا للملائكة اسجدوا لآدم فسجدوا إلا إبليس كان من الجن ففسق عن أمر ربه أفتتخذونه وذريته أولياء من دوني وهم لكم عدو بئس للظالمين بدلا ما أشهدتهم خلق السماوات والأرض ولا خلق أنفسهم وما كنت متخذ المضلين عضدا ويوم يقول نادوا شركائي الذين زعمتم فدعوهم فلم يستجيبوا لهم وجعلنا بينهم موبقا ورأى المجرمون النار فظنوا أنهم مواقعوها ولم يجدوا عنها مصرفا ولقد صرفنا في هذا القرآن للناس من كل مثل وكان الإنسان أكثر شيء جدلا وما منع الناس أن يؤمنوا إذ جاءهم الهدى ويستغفروا ربهم إلا أن تأتيهم سنة الأولين أو يأتيهم العذاب قبلا وما نرسل المرسلين إلا مبشرين ومنذرين ويجادل الذين كفروا بالباطل ليدحضوا به الحق واتخذوا آياتي وما أنذروا هزوا ومن أظلم ممن ذكر بآيات ربه فأعرض عنها ونسي ما قدمت يداه إنا جعلنا على قلوبهم أكنة أن يفقهوه وفي آذانهم وقرا وإن تدعهم إلى الهدى فلن يهتدوا إذا أبدا وربك الغفور ذو الرحمة لو يؤاخذهم بما كسبوا لعجل لهم العذاب بل لهم موعد لن يجدوا من دونه موئلا وتلك القرى أهلكناهم لما ظلموا وجعلنا لمهلكهم موعدا وإذ قال موسى لفتاه لا أبرح حتى أبلغ مجمع البحرين أو أمضي حقبا فلما بلغا مجمع بينهما نسيا حوتهما فاتخذ سبيله في البحر سربا فلما جاوزا قال لفتاه آتنا غداءنا لقد لقينا من سفرنا هذا نصبا قال أرأيت إذ أوينا إلى الصخرة فإني نسيت الحوت وما أنسانيه إلا الشيطان أن أذكره واتخذ سبيله في البحر عجبا قال ذلك ما كنا نبغي فارتدا على آثارهما قصصا فوجدا عبدا من عبادنا آتيناه رحمة من عندنا وعلمناه من لدنا علما قال له موسى هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا قال إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا وكيف تصبر على ما لم تحط به خبرا قال ستجدني إن شاء الله صابرا ولا أعصي لك أمرا قال فإن اتبعتني فلا تسألني عن شيء حتى أحدث لك منه ذكرا فانطلقا حتى إذا ركبا في السفينة خرقها قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها لقد جئت شيئا إمرا قال ألم أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا قال لا تؤاخذني بما نسيت ولا ترهقني من أمري عسرا فانطلقا حتى إذا لقيا غلاما فقتله قال أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس قال أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس لقد جئت شيئا نكرا قال ألم أقل لك إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا قال إن سألتك عن شيء بعدها فلا تصاحبني قد بلغت من لدني عذرا فانطلقا حتى إذا أتيا أهل قرية استطعما أهلها فأبوا أن يضيفوهما فوجدا فيها جدارا يريد أن ينقض فأقامه قال لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءهم ملك وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. وأما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحما. وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك وما فعلته عن أمري ذلك تأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا. إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا فأتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا. قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا. ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا. كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا. ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا. قال ما مكني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما. آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا. فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا. قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكاء وكان وعد ربي حقا. وتركنا بعضهم يومئذ يموج في بعض ونفخ في الصور فجمعناهم جمعا. وعرضنا جهنم يومئذ للكافرين عرضا. الذين كانت أعينهم في غطاء عن ذكري وكانوا لا يستطيعون سمعا. أفحسب الذين كفروا أن يتخذوا عبادي من دوني أولياء إنا أعتدنا جهنم للكافرين نزلا قل هل ننبئكم بالأخسرين أعمالا الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا أولئك الذين كفروا بآيات ربهم ولقائه فحبطت أعمالهم فلا نقيم لهم يوم القيامة وزنا ذلك جزاؤهم جهنم بما كفروا واتخذوا آياتي ورسلي هزوا إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا قل لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي ولو جئنا بمثله مددا قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فمن كان يرجو لقاء ربه فليعمل عملا صالحا ولا يشرك بعبادة ربه أحدا صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykh Ismael Essa, for that beautiful recitation today. We had so many comments. Someone sent you du'as from South Africa. Sister Wazila said, my favorite reciter, Brother Ismail, did it again. My eyes are wet and my heart is. May Allah reward you tremendously. And as well, Sister Nicole said, beautiful, the passion, we feel it. So thank you so much for always blessing our programs with your beautiful recitation, mashallah. And we will see you tonight for our Isra Mi'raj program as well, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad you all enjoyed that recitation. I see all your comments coming in. It's always a blessing to gather together and listen to the beautiful words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by our amazing reciters every week, mashallah. If you enjoyed the recitation so far, give this video a like so it gets recommended to more people. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell, inshallah, so you never miss a video from us. I have some very exciting announcements coming up. But first, I want to remind you all that you're watching Friday Gems. We'll just listen to the recitation, and we'll be going to the reflection portion shortly with Shaykha Muslema Purmul, as well as a Friday lesson on the Mi'raj of the believer, healing through prayer, inshallah, as well as a Q&A. So you can still share this link, celebratemercy.com/Friday, with your friends and family so they can join us for the remainder of the program, inshallah. Tonight is our Ascent After Anguish, reflections on the Isra Mi'raj program at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. If you have not registered yet, you can go to celebratemercy.com/Isra. Shaykh Ismael Essa will be joining us and reciting Quran throughout the program, as well as all the other incredible teachers and reciters and poets that you see here. We will be having a wonderful webinar tonight, inshallah. So I hope you all will join us. And now for the exciting announcement I wanted to share with you all today. This is Celebrate Mercy's Ramadan 2023 calendar. We are now at the end of Rajab, There's just one more month, Sha'ban, and then Ramadan is right around the corner. So we are hard at work here at Celebrate Mercy, preparing for our daily Ramadan programming. If you have been with us for a while, you have experienced our Ramadan programming. But if not, I'll take you through what we have going on this year. Inshallah, we will start our mornings with Surat Yasin and morning dhikr together. At night, every night, we will do a juz recitation and discussion by our teachers. And as well, throughout the week, every week, we will have 2 to 3 adult series classes on prophetic du'as, different surahs of the Quran, inshallah, as well weekly kids series as we've been having regularly throughout the past year. And inshallah, a bi-weekly virtual iftar for the Celebrate Mercy community, as well as our standalone webinars, Ramadan resolutions before the month begins, the Remembering Badr webinar, 27th night and first night of Eid, inshallah. So I hope you are all as excited as I am for Ramadan 2023 here at Celebrate Mercy. You can go to celebratemercy.com/Ramadan to look at our calendar, learn more, and sign up to be the first to learn about the specific details of all these programs, inshallah. As well, you can add our Google Calendar to your Google Calendar by going to celebratemercy.com/calendar. We've been updating it since Rabiul Awal, so every Friday you see the Friday Gems program. If we have kids series, you will see the kids series programs, and so on. And so you will be updated with our Ramadan programming as well, inshallah. And as well, since we have so many webinars coming up, and especially even with tonight's webinar, we are looking for sponsors to cover the costs of our programming. So if you are able to support us by sponsoring our programming, you can go to info@celebratemercy.com. You can email us at info@celebratemercy.com, and we'll have slides with du'as up for everyone who is watching to make dua for you and your family as you support our programming, inshallah. As well, I wanted to let you all know that we're hiring full-time, part-time, and internship roles, especially with Ramadan coming up. And you all saw the amount of programs that we have planned for this month. So you can go to celebratemercy.com/careers. There's something for everyone. There's roles in marketing, social media, programs, and we have a new posting today for a live host. So if you are interested in being a Celebrate Mercy host, you can apply for that. As you saw, we have many daily programs and regular programs, and we really need good quality hosts, mashallah. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go to celebratemercy.com/careers, inshallah. I'm just going to introduce our speaker for the reflection portion of today's program, our Surat al-Kahf reflections, inshallah. A reminder that there will be a Q&A session at the very end of the program. So if you have any questions throughout the Surat al-Kahf reflection or the Friday lesson, you can post your questions in the comments, or you can email anonymous questions to questions@celebratemercy.com, inshallah. And with that, I'm going to introduce Shaykha Muslema Purmul, who's joining us today. Shaykha Muslema graduated from UC San Diego with a double major in religious studies and Middle Eastern studies. And after graduating, she studied in Egypt, where she completed the bachelor's program in Sharia from Al-Azhar University in Cairo, and almost 2 years of graduate level Islamic studies at the American University in Cairo. Upon returning to America, she served the Southern California community through religious programs, chaplaincy, and working with local masjids and organizations. Currently, she serves as Assistant Religious Director at the Majlis, a community organization she and her husband co-founded. They seek to nurture safe community spaces where people can learn and live Islam using traditional sources while acknowledging the challenges of the American context. She is a mother of 2 and resides with her family in Southern California. So we welcome Shaykha Muslema to the stage. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very honored to be here. Thank you.
You can go ahead, inshallah.
I'll start with dua, inshallah. So everyone wants to join me, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, all praise is due to God, Lord of the worlds, and peace and blessings be upon our Master Muhammad and his noble family, companions, and followers. We intend to learn and to teach, to remind and be reminded, to benefit and be benefited, to improve and be improved, and to encourage holding fast to the book of God and the way of his messenger, and to call unto guidance and to direct towards good, hoping for the countenance of God and his pleasure and his proximity and his reward. And peace and blessings be upon our Master Muhammad and his noble family, companions, and followers. Ameen. So inshallah today, one of the themes that I wanted us to reflect on together as it relates to Surat al-Kahf, and it's a running theme that we can find in the stories of Surat al-Kahf, is actually the calling us to focus and to be present with God and our purpose, and to be aware of the distractions. And so I want to say, if you wanted to put a title to the reflection session for today, and almost a title maybe for the entire session, is about avoiding the distractions, and how the distractions will always be there. And they will be there, especially when the endeavor or the purpose or the cause is a great cause. There's going to be even more distractions. And this is something that we can see in Surat al-Kahf. So if we can open the surah to verse 7. If Celebrate Mercy can put verse 7 onto the screen for everyone. And if that is something that we cannot, alhamdulillah, thank you so much. Barakallahu fikum. So even, if we were to look at the verses and look at every story in the surah, I would encourage us to reflect on what the distraction is and what the answer is, and who is behaving or who is responding truly to their purpose and who is responding to the distraction. And one of the things that I feel is a big anchor for this surah is it keeps bringing us back to our purpose. It keeps bringing us back to examples of those who followed their purpose. And so when we look at verse 7, we have, just for the sake of time, I'm going to read the English, the Arabic is there for us. We have indeed made whatever is on earth as an adornment for it, in order to test which of them is best in deeds. If we can go to the next verse. And we will certainly reduce whatever is on it to barren ground. So this verse that happens early in the surah, everything on this earth, all of it, all of creation, can be a distraction for us. It is something that is attractive. It is something that calls our focus. It is something that can sort of deceive us about our lives, about the purpose of our lives. And yet, how does it end? At the end, all of it, everything will be reduced. Everything will become dust. It will be reduced to barren ground. And so, if we want to look back at the last slide, it talks about which of them are best in deeds, right? إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Like, this is kind of like a thesis statement about the surah. If all of the things that we face in this life, every breath that we take, there is a test. And that test is which of us are going to respond to whatever it is with the best of deeds, and which of us will be the best in deeds. And so after this, the different stories in Surat al-Kahf show examples for us of those who are tested, right? Like, this is the nature of this world. It's going to have attractions, it's going to have distractions, but which of us are best in deeds? And the very first story that comes up after this is the story of the people of the cave. And if we go to verses 13 through 16, they are truly one of the most remarkable examples that I think we can benefit from in terms of how do we avoid the distractions. They provide for us a story of those that were very heroic, and they weren't elderly. They were, people who had lived their lives and then looked back and at the world and said, you know what, this was actually important. No, they're actually young people. They're young men. And so if we look at verses 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "We relate to you, O Prophet, their story in truth. They were youths who truly believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance." If we want to go to the next verse. "And we strengthened their hearts when they stood up and declared, 'Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. We will never call upon any God besides him.'" I want to continue. "Or we would truly be uttering an outrageous lie." We'll read the whole section, yes. "Then they said to one another, 'These people of ours have taken gods besides him. Why do they not produce a clear proof of them?' Who then does more wrong than those who fabricate lies against Allah? Since you have distanced yourselves from them and what they worship besides Allah, take refuge in the cave. Your Lord will extend his mercy to you and accommodate you in your ordeal." So a number of points here, inshallah, as we reflect on the companions of the cave. First of all, they're young. They're young men, and Allah has given them guidance, and he's increased them in guidance. The second point to take is that Allah has enabled them to have strength in their hearts. Now, the strength of heart is one of the elements that allows us to avoid distractions. So spiritual strength, the soundness of our hearts is something that allows us to see through the distractions. And I think it's also very beautiful that in the verse, it doesn't simply say that these companions of the cave, they said. It says they stood up and said. So when someone stands up to say something, they're declaring their faith, and they're standing up in the middle of those who have been distracted and have been deceived. They're standing up with faith in the middle of a society that has actually fallen for the life of this world. And so there's a recognition, I think, that we can take in our time, that the people around us may be deceived. Like you may live in a country that is majority not Muslim or not even faithful. They don't believe in God. You may live somewhere where people have been totally and utterly distracted and deceived by the life of this world. And yet the undistracted heart is able to stand up and declare their faith in the middle of that and take refuge from those distractions. Take refuge and say, I am not like that. I am not choosing to live that kind of lifestyle. I recognize all of you have fallen for this. I'm not falling for it. And this is something that's really important for young people in the West, in places where they're, the company around them are not practicing, is for them to know that they have strength of heart. They have the ability to have strength of heart to stand up and to be strong in their faith and to say, I don't care about the peer pressure. I don't care about if the rest of the society is doing X, Y, or Z. I am not falling for it. I will not fall for it. I wasn't created for this. And essentially, that's what the companions of the cave do. And they take refuge in a cave. And essentially, they're there to protect their hearts. They're there to protect their faith. And there's an analogy for us in the cave, is that we also seek to take refuge. And our cave, our safe place, is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we want our hearts to be a safe place that is sort of, again, like that cave. We want our hearts to be a place where the company in our hearts is believing company. The thoughts in our hearts are undistracted. The companions that we have in our hearts, whatever is elements that we have in our hearts, are focusing us and pushing us towards our purpose and away from the distractions. And so I think, again, this is one of the lessons we can take from the first story that's mentioned. Now, if we go to verse 21, in the surah, if we can go to verse 21. I can read it. If it's, I'll just read it, inshallah, just because I know we're short on time. So I'm going to read the English translation. That is, oh, okay. That is how we, yes, that is how we cause them to be discovered, so that their people might know that Allah's promise of resurrection is true and that there is no doubt about the hour. When the people disputed with each other about the case of the youth after their death, some proposed to build a structure around them. Their Lord knows best about them. So if we can go back to the previous slide, this is something that I think is really, again, it calls our attention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us why he is mentioning this. Why did he bring about this miracle for the people of that time, as well as it's being mentioned in Quran. So now this miracle is an example for the people of all time afterwards. And it says that is how we cause them to be discovered, so that their people might know that Allah's promise of resurrection is true and that there is no doubt about the hour. So one of the things that we are really distracted of in this world is the Day of Judgment. We are so distracted. We may say, I believe, as one of my pillars of faith, yes, I believe in Allah and I believe in his prophets, I believe in his books, I believe in the hour, I believe in the last day. But we are utterly distracted from the last day. We are utterly distracted as a society from the reality that we will all meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are all going to stand in front of him. We will die and that we will be resurrected. This is something that is such a central point in the Quran. You can almost not turn a page of the Quran without a reminder of al-akhirah and a reminder about the Day of Judgment. It's a very central. Obviously, it's one of our pillars of faith, but it's very central to the Quran as well, the Quranic message, for us to not be distracted from the hour. The hour is important, and for us, this entire story of the people of the cave is symbolic, right? They saw the miracle. They slept for, some said 300 years, some said less, some said more, and then they're brought back to life, and people see that they're brought back to life. And that gives them this example that we will be brought back to life just as they were. Now, for all of us, again, when it comes to the hour and the distraction from the hour, so many times in my office hours and in the course of the work that I do in the community, one of the things that I think is a really important point for us is to find ourselves in tribulation and not to lose ourselves in tribulation. And so what is an example of finding yourself in tribulation? So a tribulation comes, and a person, because of that tribulation, they turn more to God in prayer. They call upon him more. They are more connected to him. They believe in him more. And all of that is good. That's a good sign. That's a wonderful sign. If, alhamdulillah, that's happening when people are tested. But there's another level to get to, and that is to become about God and not about the tribulation. To allow the tribulation, first it connects us to him, right? Because we're in a state of being tried. But then it has an opportunity. There's an opportunity in tribulation to transcend even whatever the trial is, and to sort of shift the focus of the heart from the distraction of the tribulation and be about God. Okay, so a person has a tribulation in their family, with their spouse, with their kids, with their wealth, with their career, with whatever it is. Maybe there's whatever that tribulation is, whatever that struggle is, and it's a major tribulation. And in the beginning of that, they find themselves in need, and so they call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're asking for help. All right, like it's a person who's maybe they feel like they're drowning in the ocean, and they're calling for help. And all of a sudden, alhamdulillah, they receive some help, and they're holding on to the life raft, and that's pulling them back to shore. Now, in the middle of that, can they transcend? They realize, okay, I'm not drowning anymore. The lifeboat is here, or the whatever has been thrown into the water for me to be saved. But now I want to be about the one who saved me. I want to be about the one who can hear me. I want to be about the one who my entire life was actually created for. I was not created for my spouse. I was not created for my kids. I was not created for my wealth. I was not created for my career. I was not created for my education. I was not created for anything or anyone except for God. I was not, and I will meet him. And I need to prepare for the day that I meet him. And I want to prepare for that hour. That is the purpose of my life. Is who will be the best indeed? Who will worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all of the different ways that we seek to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who will be distracted from it? And yes, tribulation can actually be a distraction. If we're so obsessed with getting something in this world, that's all we care about, right? And yes, we're going to ask Allah, oh Allah, I want this in this world. I'm not saying don't make dua. We make dua, but we need to transcend it. Because the attachment to whatever it is in this world should never be stronger than the attachment to God himself. And that switch has to happen in our hearts. And we need to become a people who can overcome these kinds of distractions. Now, because of time, I'm actually going to skip all the way to the end of the surah. Now, if we were to go through all the surahs in Surat al-Kahf, we're going to find a story of people who maybe succumbed to distraction and a story of people who overcame or transcended the distraction. There's the people of the two gardens. One of them was distracted again, and he actually says the words that I did not think the hour would come. All right. And then we move on, and there's a story of Iblis and Adam alayhi salam. Right. And obviously Iblis is the source of the distractions. There's the story also of Musa alayhi salam. And if we can go to verses 60 through 66. Actually, if we can go straight to verse 62 because of time. I will just read it. We will see. I'll start at verse 60. As for Moses, he said to his servant, I will not rest until I reach the place where the two seas meet, even if it takes me years. But when they reached the place where the two seas meet, they had forgotten all about their fish, which made its way into the sea and swam away. They journeyed on, and then Moses said to his servant, give us our morning meal. This means the fish. This journey of ours is very tiring. And the servant said, remember when we were resting by the rock, I forgot the fish. Satan made me forget to pay attention to it, and it must have made its way into the sea. How strange. Moses said, that was the place we were looking for. So the two turned back, retraced their footsteps, and found one of our servants, a man to whom we had granted our mercy, and whom we had given knowledge of our own. So in this story, something really intriguing happens. Musa alayhi salam is traveling with a companion. They are traveling to find Khidr alayhi salam. And they have fish with them. And they are in the moment where they're supposed to actually pay attention to what's going on, the fish escape them and go back into the water somehow. And that place, later on when Musa alayhi salam wants to have the meal, he says, the fish they escaped over there. So Musa alayhi salam realizes the place where the fish escaped is actually the place where they were supposed to meet Khidr alayhi salam. How did they miss it? The words that are said is, Satan made me forget to pay attention to it. So there's a distraction. There's some nisyan, there's some forgetfulness, there's something that's the place where you were going to meet Khidr. Why does it happen right there at the meeting point where Musa alayhi salam is supposed to meet Khidr alayhi salam? Because great good is supposed to come from that. Great good. So what does he want to do? He wants to distract Musa alayhi salam. He wants to distract his companion, and especially in moments of great good. So when it comes to anything that is good for us in our religion, know that is the point that Shaitan will try to press on the distraction. He'll try to bring them all about, whether it's, and we're going to get to it in the second portion, but it may be when it comes to when we stand in prayer. That's when he's going to press on the distractions, right? Because that's a place of great spiritual benefit. That's a place that brings us back to the purpose of why we were created. If a person is going to make Hajj or Umrah, watch how many obstacles will happen before they're supposed to leave on that trip to try to make them turn away from that good intention. How many distractions, how many other things will come in the way. A person sets out to study, to memorize Quran, any lofty goal that is attached to the pleasure of God as an act of worship, that is where the distraction will come. And the ones who are best in deeds are the ones who are able to overcome and transcend those distractions and be connected to God above and everything and anyone else. And whatever I said that's beneficial is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever I said that's wrong and mistaken is from myself and shaitan. Thank you all.
Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykha Muslema, for that beautiful reflection on the theme of distractions within Surat al-Kahf. I just wanted to share a couple comments from Sister Aghila, who says she's looking forward to your talk. Salams to you and everyone at Celebrate Mercy from her Aghila auntie. Very cute, mashallah. And as well, we got this comment. We got several of these comments that, you know, it was so important to hear that I was not created for my spouse, not my career, not my parents, not for myself, for Allah only. So thank you for that gem, mashallah. I'm going to give a couple announcements and I'll bring you back for the next portion of the webinar. If you enjoyed this talk by Shaykha Muslema, you can follow her on Facebook and Twitter at Muslema Purmul, inshallah. And if you enjoyed this talk, give this video a like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell, inshallah, so you never miss a video from us, inshallah. We just finished the reflection portion of today's program, and we'll be moving on to the Friday lesson, the Mi'raj of the believer, healing through prayer and Q&A shortly. So you can still invite your friends and family by sharing the link celebratemercy.com/Friday, inshallah, so they can join us for the remainder of the program. Another reminder that tonight is our Ascent After Anguish Reflections on the Isra Mi'raj program. If you have not registered yet, you can go to celebratemercy.com/Isra and register and join us tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern until around 11 p.m. Eastern for this incredible webinar on the Prophet's experiences before the Isra Mi'raj and the Isra Mi'raj, inshallah. And as well, I just revealed our Ramadan 2023 calendar prior to this. So I hope you're all as excited as I am for daily programs this Ramadan, Surat Yasin and morning dhikr in the mornings, nightly juz recitation and discussion at night, and regular adult classes, kids classes, virtual iftars, and one-time webinars throughout the month. If you want to learn more, you can go to celebratemercy.com/Ramadan. And also you can sign up there to be the first to know the specific details of all these programs, inshallah. You can also download our calendar, celebratemercy.com/calendar. And that is an easy way to get instant updates on Celebrate Mercy programmings in your personal calendar so that you know where to join us and when to join us for all our programs, inshallah. And I want to ask you all if you are able to help 4 Muslims who have actually joined our Umrah trip that's underway right now. They're currently in Jerusalem, mashallah. They need some financial aid for sadaqah to cover the cost of their trip. If you are able to, you can go to celebratemercy.com/assist, inshallah. When you go there, you will see that we're just less than halfway to our goal of supporting their scholarship fund. So if you are able to contribute anything to this fund, it would help us greatly. As well, tomorrow is our final kids series class, 7 Heavens, 8 Prophets, a journey through the Mi'raj. If you have not joined this kids session, if your kids have not joined these sessions, that's totally fine. Tomorrow is the final class, and it's an Isra Mi'raj celebration. So they can join and enjoy our celebration tomorrow with our teachers and reciters, inshallah. You can go to celebratemercy.com/Mi'raj to register if you have not already done so. And with that, another reminder that we will have a Q&A session at the end of today's program. You can post your questions in the comments or email questions at celebratemercy.com for anonymous questions. And I'm just going to reintroduce Shaykha Muslema to bring her back to the stage. Shaykha Muslema Purmul graduated from UC San Diego with a double major in religious studies and Middle Eastern studies. After graduating, she studied in Egypt, where she completed the bachelor's program in Sharia from Al-Azhar University in Cairo, and almost 2 years of graduate-level Islamic studies at the American University in Cairo. Upon returning to America, she served the Southern California community through religious programs, chaplaincy, and working with local masjids and organizations. Currently, she serves as Assistant Religious Director at the Majlis, a community organization she and her husband co-founded. They seek to nurture safe community spaces where people can learn and live Islam using traditional sources while acknowledging the challenges of the American context. She is a mother of 2 and resides with her family in Southern California. So I welcome you back to the stage, Shaykha Muslema. Assalamu alaikum once again.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. So inshallah, something that I wanted us to reflect on this occasion of the Isra Mi'raj, the ascension and the night journey of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu is I feel every year when this event comes around, it's an opportunity for all of us to sort of renew our relationship with our prayer. Simply because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us that prayer is the Mi'raj of the believer. It's the ascension of the believer. And as we go through, inshallah, and as everyone will attend the program later on with Celebrate Mercy that goes into the details of this journey, for today, or for the Jumu'ah reminder, I just wanted us to reflect on one aspect together. And it's connected to what we talked about earlier at some level. And it's about how the prayer is really something that is a healing for our own hearts and is an expression of the purpose of our creation. It is an expression of not being distracted by all that is in existence and actually being fully and totally concerned and devoted to the Creator. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he said very beautifully, a beautiful statement I wanted to share. He said that in the heart there is a need, right? A very strong desire that will not cease until Allah is the only one who is sought. In it is a void that cannot be filled except by His love, turning to Him, always remembering Him and being sincere to Him. Were a person to be given the entire world and everything in it, that would never fill this void. This is a really important reality that exists, is that our hearts have a need to pray. It's not just an obligation in terms of we need to fulfill the commands of God. That's true. But there's a natural need to actually follow these obligations. Allah has prescribed for us in order of sort of priority of what's most important to us. He's literally legislated upon us that which our hearts are desperately in need of. And our hearts are desperately in need of prayer. Our hearts are desperately in need of turning to Him in prayer. And that is one of the most beneficial ways in which we are able to remember God and draw closer to Him. That the servant does not draw closer to God except what God has already made an obligation upon them, right? We know that from the hadith. We can't draw closer to Him with other things. There's nothing that's actually more sort of like potent in drawing closer to God than what He's already prescribed. And the first thing that's prescribed on the Muslims, after believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad is the prayer itself. On the Day of Judgment, the first book that's going to be opened is the book of prayer. And if that book is good, then everything else is good. I mean, that tells us a lot. Also, that we know that in the heart, or in the body, there's a morsel of flesh. If it is sound, then everything else is sound, and that is the heart. So there's a relationship now between the book of prayer, that is, if that's good, everything else is good, and the heart, which is affected by prayer. And if the heart is good, then everything else is good. And so what we know from both of these together is that prayer has a profound impact on our hearts, and it heals what's in our hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that in the prayer, we are, prayer is something that prohibits the fahsha and the munkar. It prohibits from us. It helps us to avoid. It helps us to repent from things which are forbidden. Now, if we look at sort of like the emphasis on prayer that we get in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surat al-Mu'minun, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, right? That the believers are successful. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Those who in their prayers, they have khushu', they have focus, they're not distracted. And then you move on to the verse 9, right? Because then there's a bunch of other descriptions. And before that, so the description of who are the believers, they are people who have focus in their prayers. And then many other descriptions. And then to close this category, again, وَالَّذِينَ عَلَى صَلَوَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ, and those who strictly guard over their prayers. And it's not just guarding over the doing of the prayer, it's also guarding over the quality of the prayer itself. And so this is something that I wanted us to think about and reflect on. There's an analogy. There's a really significant analogy for us in the Isra Mi'raj, and I actually wanted to read it to you all. And it's before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets to Sidratul Muntaha, and he is traveling with Jibreel through the heavens, guess what happens? I'll read it to you right now. And this is so everyone knows where it's from. This is from the Prophet's night journey and heavenly ascent. And this is by Sayyid Muhammad ibn Alawi al-Maliki. I have the book right here for everyone. And if for those who have the text, if they want to open to page 12. At the bottom of page 12, as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was traveling, he heard someone calling from his right, Muhammad, look at me. I want to ask you something. But the Prophet ﷺ did not respond. Then he said, who is this, O Jibreel? So he doesn't look at the person who's calling upon him to look, but he asks only Jibreel, who is his guide, who is this? He replied, this is the herald of the Jews. If you had answered him, your community would have followed Judaism. So had he looked, then that's the consequence. But he did not look. The Prophet ﷺ continued traveling, and he heard someone calling him from his left. Muhammad, look at me. I want to ask you something. But the Prophet ﷺ did not respond. Then he said, who was this, O Jibreel? He replied, this is the herald of the Christians. If you had answered him, your community would have followed Christianity. The Prophet ﷺ continued traveling and passed by a woman with bare arms, decked with every female ornament Allah had created. She said, Muhammad, look at me. I need to ask you something. But he did not look at her. Then he said, who was this, O Jibreel? He replied, this was the world, ad-dunya. If you had answered her, your community would have preferred the world of the hereafter. Would have preferred the world to the hereafter. Excuse me. They would have been distracted. As the Prophet ﷺ traveled on, he passed by an old man who was some distance away from his path, saying, come hither, O Muhammad. But Jibreel said, nay, go on, O Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he went on and then said, who was this, O Jibreel? And he replied, this was Allah's enemy, Iblis. He wanted you to incline towards him. He went on and passed by an old woman on the roadside who said, O Muhammad, look at me. I need to ask you something. But he did not look at her. Then he said, Oh, who was this, Jibreel? Who was this, O Jibreel? He replied, the world has as much left to live as the remaining lifetime of this old woman. And so we're going to, and then the story transitions and he starts to meet the prophets and have conversations with the prophets. So before he gets to this place where he's having conversations with the prophets, there's all of these calls for him to turn away from where he's going. And where is he essentially going? In the Isra Mi'raj, he's essentially going to meet God. So for us, when we are praying and standing in front of God, we have to know that Shaitan will try to distract us in our prayer, just like he tried to distract the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the Mi'raj, in his night journey. And the Prophet ﷺ, he does not turn away. He does not look. He does not glance this way or that way. He's headed straight, and he asks only Jibreel, who's his guide to God, to understand, and for the rest of us, all of humanity, to understand what was happening. There's a symbol in this that's really important for all of us. We know that Shaitan, just as Shaitan tried to distract the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and incline him away this way and that way from heading to where he was heading, this is his promise that he wants to do the same thing with us. And so to protect the prayer and to be from those who protect our prayers, we have to protect it from the different kinds of distractions that come. The first distraction of Shaitan is to not pray at all. That's the very first one. It tells a person your heart is good. The only thing that matters to God is your heart, and you're a nice person and you're a kind person. You don't need to pray. The second distraction is you have time to pray. You don't have to pray on time. You can delay it. Keep delaying it. And then that prayer is neglected. And then when it's prayed in a state of being rushed, and there's no focus and there's no khushu', and the quality is lost. And then the third is that the person does pray on time. They actually are someone who they guarded the timing of their prayers, but inside the prayer, the Shaitan comes with every single distraction possible. And so one of the ways that we can rectify our lives, one of the ways that we can rectify the way that we live our lives, is by first and foremost protecting the prayers. We do this by trying to develop a presence of heart, being spiritually aware of what we're doing, witnessing with our intellect, having deep understanding of the words that we're saying, having stillness in our bodies, having humility in our limbs, feeling awe in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having hope in front of him. I think this is a really important element, is we need to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with an immense amount of hope. When we stand in prayer, even if a person notices that their mind is distracted, don't become so upset about that you become now distracted by your upsetness, and you're no longer focused on the fact that you're standing in front of Allah to worship him. So this is something that can be one of the ways that we get distracted, is despair, is actually starting to lose hope. As you know, there's a book, it's called The Power of Now. And I'm not, aside from like the way that these elements are brought into the wider culture about like hedonism and pleasure seeking, that's not what we're talking about. But there is something about seize the moment that you're in. Okay, the moment before your mind and heart was distracted, in this moment, make a commitment to reconnect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to refocus in your prayer. And so that happens to us in the prayer itself. To that realization of my mind is wandering, I'm going to bring it back right now. And right now I have this moment, and I have the moments onward to try to rectify the prayer. So we have to pray with a sense of hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and a good opinion of him as well. This is really, really important, significant in terms of the way that we approach the prayer itself, taking advantage of dua and supplicating to him in sujood, taking advantage of the fact that we can pour all of our worries and concerns to God in the prayer itself. I mean, when calamity strikes, there are people who they find their healing in prayer because they have a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they know when they stand in prayer, relief is going to come. They know it's like a level of yaqeen. It's a certainty that I need prayer right now because it's because of the weight of the difficulty. When we see, for example, the horrific news that came out of Turkey, emotionally, psychologically, that's something that's really, really hard for any human being to process. But we as Muslims have the gift of prayer. It's something that brings us back to ourselves, and it brings us back to our purpose. And that's not to say that if someone is suffering from mental health issues or something that is so much that the prayer itself is helps, but it's insufficient, they need more help, that they should not get more help. But prayer is like the first necessary element that helps everything else fall into the right place. And also we should pray with a sense of haya, meaning there should be some modesty in us that I don't want to do something in this prayer that causes me to fall short. So we should feel too shy actually to do things like pay attention to things we're not supposed to be paying attention to in prayer, looking around. And when we recognize that we're distracted, to feel shy about that and to come back to a place of focus. Now, in terms of the way that the shaitan tries to steal from our prayers, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, there's so many different ways. One is that the shaitan will try to use laziness and procrastination. The other one is that he pushes the obligatory deeds to the background, right? So again, we may be people who pray 5 times a day, but just praying them when they first come in has a profound impact on the blessing of your time and the blessing even of your energy. When we pray, when the prayers come in, we find that the time between the prayer times are blessed, and what we're able to accomplish is blessed. Actually, when we put prayer first, the distractions that take us away from everything else in terms of being productive actually gets a lot less. Our spiritual distractions are less. The best deed to perform is the prayer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says again that the most beloved deeds with which my slave comes nearer to me are what I have enjoined on them. Our hearts find rest in the remembrance of God. When we remember God in prayer, this is one of the most powerful ways for us to actually remember him. There's a number of narrations and verses of the Quran that point to this. One of the ways that shaitan tries to cause us to be distracted from prayer is that he makes us not relieve ourselves. So it's a person needs to go to the restroom, but rather than going to the restroom and making wudu and then praying, the person will hold that in, and that becomes a distraction for them. And so then they rush through the prayer. So this is another one. Another way that shaitan tries to distract us is by a person standing in prayer and the shaitan saying, your wudu wasn't right. Go make your wudu again. So the person breaks prayer and thinks that their wudu wasn't right, and they go and make wudu again. And they come back to try to pray and they get the same waswas. And so, we've actually been told about these things. Ibn al-Mubarak, he said, if one is uncertain about his condition of purity, he does not need to perform a new ablution. right? So if that waswas comes to you and you remember, I went to the bathroom, I made wudu, but if there's like there's this like it's causing doubt upon that, you're allowed to just ignore that and keep praying. Actually, you should ignore that and keep praying. Also, there's another waswas, that is, a person is praying and all of a sudden they have a waswas that they've actually broken their wudu in the prayer. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, if one of you finds a disturbance in his abdomen and is not certain if he has released any gas or not, he should not leave the mosque. He should not leave the prayer, basically, unless he hears its sound, right? That would be certainty, or smells its scent. And that's in Sahih Muslim. So just the random thoughts of, oh, I think you lost your wudu is not sufficient to break prayer. Know that that's one of the traps of the shaitan. Another one is the urge to show off in prayer. So if you're praying in congregation and then trying to all of a sudden, okay, people are around me, they're watching me, that's one of the ways in which he comes. The mind wandering during the prayer is also another one that is a significant element in how we get distracted. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, the kind of wandering that is prohibited while praying falls into two categories. When the mind wanders and the heart is distracted from Allah, then it's towards something other than Allah. So that's one. And the second is when the gaze wanders and one looks around. So both of these we're not supposed to do. There are narrations about this, but because of time, we're not going to go into this right now. So I'll leave on this particular tradition. So Uthman ibn Abi al-As came complaining to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he said, the shaitan comes between me and my salah and causes me problems with my recitation. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said, that is a shaitan called Khanzab. So if you feel his presence, seek refuge in Allah and blow a mist to your left 3 times. He said, I applied this advice and Allah has rid me of him. And this hadith is in Muslim. So just knowing that this is one of the doors that shaitan comes, it makes a person forget, what rak'ah are you on? What did you recite? And so we have to seek protection. And just again, why is shaitan creating all of these distractions? Why is he there, like nonstop, trying to prevent a person from really connecting in their prayer? Because there's so much healing in the prayer itself. The heart needs prayer. The heart finds rest in prayer. The heart finds rest in connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It finds peace and tranquility. And there's all of the, sort of positive spiritual experiences that a person can receive from prayer are there waiting for them. And so that is why shaitan does not want us to get the most out of it. And we have to realize that is, in the same way that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the Mi'raj, he heard the different voices around him and he didn't look. Even though they said, look at me, look at me, look at me, he didn't look. All of our concerns in this world may tell us while we're praying, look at me, look at me. You need to do this and you forgot about that. And what about this? And your kids and your work and all of those things may say, look at me, look at me, look at me. But we should look directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to anyone else in the prayer, and protect our hearts as best as we can. And again, whatever I said that's beneficial is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever I said that's wrong and mistaken is from myself and shaitan. Barakallahu fikum.
Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykha Muslema, for that great, mashallah, lesson on prayer and linking it to your Surat al-Kahf reflection on distraction and prayer being the healing for our hearts in this distracted world. We have so many comments coming in, mashallah. I just want to share some of them. Sister Thuria said, subhanAllah, this is so powerful reminder and guidance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide and make easy for us our prayers, protected. Ameen, Ya Rab. And as well, she said, I truly needed to hear this talk today. It uplifted my heart and soul. Jazakallah khairan, Shaykha Muslema. As well, we had some comments saying that you're absolutely right about the fact that you mentioned that when you pray, right when the prayer comes in, it is profound and spiritual distractions are less. I've experienced that in my daily life on days that I'm not able to do my juz in the morning and complete my morning adhkar. I will be able to achieve more as opposed to days that I'm not. So mashallah, everyone related deeply to what you shared, and it was very helpful and timely. And we do have questions here both in the chat and in our emails. So I'll just start with We have a three-part question in the email, so I'll start with one of them, and I'll share the rest afterwards. But this sister said, as a mom of an active toddler, I feel like my prayers and acts of worship are distracted from watching him. I'm getting nervous thinking about Ramadan and extra prayers at the mosque. What advice can you give me?
Okay, so there's, I'm a mother as well, and I have, alhamdulillah, 2 children, and I know how difficult it is to focus in prayer, especially if a toddler is running around and you're afraid they're going to do something that is dangerous while you're praying. So one of the things that, for especially mothers of smaller children, I would just want to say, know that this is a phase that you're going through. And when this phase of life is over, inshallah, you will be able to come back to the norm of basically having a little bit more control over your environment and your focus. But one of the things that can be done is planning the prayer times according to the child's schedule, so that there's certain times in the schedule where okay, this is the time where the child takes a nap, so I'm going to pray my dhuhr during their nap. Or this is the time where maybe there's they settle down and they're watching some cartoon or something that is okay and beneficial. Maybe when they're doing that, if you avoid television altogether, that's a little bit different. But if they're doing something that this is something that usually keeps them engaged, then planning the prayer time to be at those times when they're fully focused themselves and something else. When I had sort of like a crawler that was awake, I found that just putting them in a playpen with toys. Okay, I know that there's nothing dangerous they can do in a playpen with toys. And then I would do the prayer. So those are things that, during the daytime hours. But there's also the precious night hours when I know moms are so tired and they're especially if you've lost sleep or you're losing sleep. So with the night hours, like the Fajr prayer and also the night prayer, Isha prayer, praying those after the kids have gone to sleep or praying those just in solitude in your own home is something that I think inshallah can, and really trying to like put more emphasis in those, meaning take more time because you have it. Pray more nawafil at those times if you can, because you have that time. They're asleep and they're not going to be up distracting you in any way. For the month of Ramadan, I personally found in the month of Ramadan as a mother, before I was a mom, I used to not even be able to imagine enjoying doing all my tarawih at home by myself. I used to think like the only way to pray tarawih is in the masjid because it's such a beautiful experience. The recitation is so beautiful. Praying with hundreds and thousands of people is such a beautiful experience. And then after I became a mother, I actually kind of experienced the words of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, where my prayer was in that context better in my home. Like my focus and my khushu' and my ability to enjoy the prayer was actually better in my home. I'm not saying you have to stay home. I'm saying that for you, like, pray wherever it's better for you. And so if you find that when you are in the masjid, and you can arrange for childcare, someone to stay home with your infant while you go to the masjid, then if you can arrange that, then wonderful. For myself, I found that I was just in a much better place in terms of my focus and khushu' when I prayed at home when my kids were smaller. So it just depends on where you find that focus. Some actually still enjoy, even with the toddler, they'll pray in the mother's room with all the toddlers crawling around and crying, but they thoroughly enjoy the prayer and they're able to connect more still in congregation. If that's how you are, there's nothing wrong with trying to do that, inshallah, and sort of arranging with other sisters in the community to have a space like that is safe for mothers. For me personally, again, I found that I thoroughly enjoyed because when you are leading your own prayer, you get to extend your sujood as long as you want. No one says Allahu Akbar and like pulls you out of that place where you're making dua. You get to read the surahs that you want. You get to go at the pace that you want. You get to hold the mushaf and read from it if you want. So like I found for myself when my kids were smaller, that tarawih in my own home was which I like, the experience of it was just better for me. And I think it's going to depend on each person, in terms of what their circumstances are, but arranging for those circumstances maybe in advance will help, inshallah, whatever it is that your preference is.
Thank you so much for that comprehensive answer, mashallah. I'm sure she appreciated that answer. And I mentioned she had 2 other questions. We'll take another question from her before we go to some other ones and come back if we have more time. But she asked, what are alternatives to distractions that we can present, especially to young people?
Distractions, you mean from in terms of prayer, or distractions from God in general?
Yeah, I think it seems to be a general question. So, what are alternatives we can provide to, I guess, just worldly distractions to young people specifically?
I think something that is important for us when it comes to young people is creating experiences for them that are sort of like religious experiences for little ones, like, because they're very powerful. Their hearts are so clean to begin with, so they will feel things in such a deep way at a young age that stays with them. So as an example, it might be, and subhanAllah, when I was in college, there was a family that used to do this, and I thought it was so beautiful. But a father would actually bring his small little girls to the masjid for at Fajr time. He would come and bring them, and so they would be praying with me and next to me, and they're cute little children, and they would pray. They're like 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, and they loved it. They loved it for two reasons. One, because this is a time when the women's musalla is mostly empty. There's no one there, so it's like they get to experience that. The second is it's a bonding experience between them and their dad. So that this is something like special for them. Their dad wakes them up early, gets them ready, and takes them to the masjid for that. And so that was something I remember seeing and thinking, these kids are going to remember this for the rest of their lives. And there's all sorts of different sort of experiences that we can try to schedule, within our lives for kids. Things like, okay, take them to Fajr, and then maybe take them out to breakfast afterwards. Make the association so that they get to experience like being awake like that, being with other Muslims like that. It could be that when we are telling them stories of the prophets and stories from the Quran, if your family is able to make a trip to places where these things have happened. So if you are, there's different places in the world to visit that help us tell the stories of our religion. So as an example, if your kids can go with you to Umrah, that's a big thing to do, but that is something they will never forget. I teach a Sunday children's program in San Diego, and for the children who have gone to Umrah with their families, they can sit there and tell you for hours. They will tell you about their Umrah trip. Shy children who will not talk in class. If you ask them, what was it like to make Umrah? Did you like Masjid al-Nabawi? They will talk about it, and they will ask me, we want to go again. I would love to go again. Children who have experienced that, subhanAllah, it's a profound shift for them. It's a place that actually removes all the distractions. When they're in Masjid al-Nabawi, and you tell them about this is where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is, and inshallah, they've been raised with stories of the Sirah, they get very, very, very connected to that. If you take them to Muslim countries, take them to Egypt, take them to the graves of the family of the Prophet ﷺ. There's the graves of so many of the Sahaba, that are buried in Egypt. If they go to Turkey, there are places like that. There's any of these places, if children experience it as like an experience, this is something that helps them. Another thing I think is also getting them out in nature, connecting with nature, allowing them to connect with God's signs in nature. If you're by the ocean, take them to the ocean and tell them that, this entire life that we live is less than a drop of water in the ocean. And let them look at the ocean and then compare it to like a drop of water. They can understand that. Or less than a grain of sand in a desert. There's I think with children, it has to be, the story is one thing, but getting them outside in the world, touching and feeling and experiencing these lessons is one of the ways that helps to clear out some of these distractions, inshallah.
MashaAllah, thank you for that comprehensive response. We also had another question asking if you could provide the title of the book that you're reading, so we can maybe share that in the chat with the viewers.
Yeah, it's called The Prophet's Night Journey and Heavenly Ascent, and it's by Sayyid Muhammad ibn Alawi al-Maliki. There's a translation and notes by Jibril Fuad Haddad, and the publishing company is Imam Ghazali Institute, or Aqsa Publications as well. So.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just pulling up the webpage of the book from Al-Ghazali Institute, so I'll just share it in the chat so everyone has a copy. We haven't even got into the questions on YouTube, but we keep getting questions in email and through messages, private messages. So someone asked this question privately. They're tuned in and they're wondering, they're looking for coping strategies to stay on top of prayers while navigating ADHD and anxiety disorders. The guilt of missing prayer and the lack of motivation has been increasing my distance from prayer and perpetuating my anxiety.
Okay, well, I mean, if the person has been formally diagnosed and having these issues, I would actually refer this answer to a licensed Muslim therapist, because I wouldn't want to say something that makes the anxiety worse inadvertently. And so, yeah, I defer this answer to someone who is licensed and understands that mental health condition much better than I do. And I mean, just out of words of encouragement, I want to commend the person for asking the question and for still trying to overcome essentially what's a medical condition in order to feel more connected to their prayers. And so I want to tell them just know and understand that, and if a person has a medical condition, even when it comes to prayers, we have exceptions and different kinds of exceptions. If someone is, for example, too unhealthy to stand in prayer, they're allowed to sit. If someone is unable to keep, for example, their wudu perpetually because of a different health condition, they are allowed to make wudu right before each prayer, and just to pray like that. Even if they lose the wudu in the prayer, the prescription is just make the wudu for every prayer, because they're not someone who can maintain it. There's all sorts of exceptions that are there for those who have particular medical situations, and I would refer them, inshallah, to a licensed therapist.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for those words of encouragement and positive kind of feedback. Maybe going to another question that might reflect that question, but not necessarily a medical diagnosis. This audience member said that someone shared with me the other day that they don't feel a point in praying because they feel nothing and that their prayer is empty. They're also hesitant to perform the pilgrimage because they feel their practice isn't at a level worthy of going. For more context, there are new Muslims struggling with day-to-day practices. So if you have any advice you could share, that would be greatly appreciated. And I think this might apply even to long-time Muslims, so you can address it however you see fit.
Mm-hmm. So, like, one of the ways that shaitan really does try to attack the prayer is by consuming us with like negative thoughts. And the negative thought here is, I don't feel anything, right? So, and people will go through that as a test, even like for very practicing Muslims who, not just someone who's newly converted to Islam, but someone who's been practicing their whole life will go through that. Maybe we go through it sometimes periods of life where you feel less than other times. But this is actually one of them. This is still a blessed test. And what do I mean by this? When we pray, even though we don't feel what we hope to feel from the prayer, and we pray anyways, it's actually a sign that we are there to worship God and not to worship the feeling. So the purpose of the prayer is to an act of obedience in worshiping God in the way that He has asked us to worship Him. And so when we pray and we still feel nothing, despite the fact that we're praying what we're hoping for, and we're like, even if I feel nothing, even if my heart feels like dead right now, I'm going to pray because I worship God. I don't worship the feeling. I don't worship the high. I don't worship the beautiful moments. And eventually, a person maintains this and maintains this and maintains this towards what feels like, I want to say like a numbness or a coldness that's happening on the inside. And then it chips away at that and it breaks it down, and eventually they start to feel again. But it could also, depending on the situation, every situation is different. So talking to someone about it on a one-on-one level, I think is going to help as well, because sometimes people don't feel anything, but there's a lot going on in their lives, and there's a lot of they don't feel because they've actually gone numb due to other kinds of tribulations. And so in order to survive and remain functional in life, they've turned off all their emotions. They don't realize they've done it, but they have, and they may be a little bit depressed, if not a lot depressed. And so when they're praying, they're going through the motions, but what they really need help with is everything else that's going on in life. That's sort of why they shut down the emotions in the first place. And so it would be good to consult. And again, Muslim therapist would be someone good to consult, but also someone who is trained in pastoral care, like the local, I shouldn't say the local, but if there's like a religious leader that you trust in particular, to try to have a conversation with them and see where that takes them. Because it may not be, there may be nothing, like, I want to say there may be, it may not be a spiritual deficiency. They see themselves being as like, oh, I'm not worth it, or I'm not good enough. And in reality, it's actually, they're going through a difficulty in life, and they need help in that regard. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you so much for your helpful and encouraging answers. And if I go to the third question from our first sister, this might help us kind of continue the previous question and answer. She asked, how do we develop presence of heart? So how can we cultivate this presence to be more present in prayer and in our day-to-day lives?
So in the prayer itself, this idea of allowing your heart to be present, first, I want to say it starts with like setting the intention that like I'm here to worship Allah, and I'm standing in front of Allah, and I'm talking to Allah, and I'm receiving from Allah, and renewing this intention and sort of bringing that about. And then also knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking directly into the state of our hearts. He doesn't look at our forms, He looks at our hearts. And so gathering sort of ourselves, knowing in that moment, right? To worship Allah as though you see Him. We don't see Him. When we stand up in prayer, we don't see Him, but knowing in this moment, He sees me and He sees my heart, and I'm turning my heart over to Him. And I'm doing this as an act of worshiping Him. And I'm grateful to be able to do this as an act of worshiping Him. Even the fact that a person stands up and pray is a sign of God's favor upon them, because He has enabled them to go and fulfill this act of worship that is, the greatest of acts of worship. So sort of like coming to God in that way. I want to say like renew that intention of I'm standing in front of Him, and He sees me, and He sees my heart, and this is truly for Him. Something else I wanted to actually go back to a little bit for the question that was before, about like not feeling that they're good enough for like the pilgrimage. That is also potentially something that is like, I want to say that's like one of those negative thoughts that's meant to take the person away from something that is profoundly beneficial. And, the Prophet Muhammad SAW, when did he get the command to pray? The command to pray happens after he's gone through the most painful and difficult year of his life. He has lost his uncle, his beloved uncle, who was his protector on the outside. And he lost his beloved wife, Khadija, radiallahu anha, who was his protector on the inside. She was someone who like nurtured him and supported him in his home and through everything that he was going through. And so he lost kind of like an inner and outer protection when he lost his uncle and his wife in the same year. And then he is calling people and they're rejecting him, and his community is going through the economic boycott, and he's witnessing them in their hunger, and he's witnessing them being persecuted and harmed, physically harmed. And then he himself goes to Ta'if, and children are sent out in the street to throw stones at him and his servant Zayd until his feet are bleeding and his sandals are soiled with the blood from his feet. I mean, this is a lot of tribulation and pain. And the relief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants him in the night journey is not just the night journey itself, but it's a continuous sort of source of relief. And that is that the prescription for prayer itself. So, prayer was you can say that prayer was decreed on the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ at a time when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ experienced one of his most painful, painful eras of his life. And there was not just healing for him in that, there's healing for our whole community for whenever we're going through something painful. The prayer is something that does that for us. And that is why the distractions will be there. That is why there will be negative, just attacks of negativity upon us when we're trying to do it. And we take a lesson in terms of, I hear and I recognize all of these voices are meant to distract me, to make me lose hope, to make me not turn to God, to make me not feel the relief or enjoy the relief that God has destined for me. And that prayer is really a spiritual vacation. That's what it's really meant to be, a spiritual vacation. Just like leave all the problems of this world behind and go on your spiritual vacation and be with God. And what Shaitan wants you to feel is like, don't go on the spiritual vacation. Don't go. And so, no, it's not a vacation. It's a burden. It's not something you want to do. It's heavy. Delay it. Don't do it. You don't need to do it. This is what his common thing is. And if the person still wants to, then it's like, no, who are you to pray? Why are you trying to pray? Who do you think you are? You think you're a good Muslim? So just know that these voices, they will always be there, because this is how valuable and precious prayer is for your heart. It is that source of healing. And self-awareness about like where the thoughts come from is a really important part of navigating ourselves in life. So every emotion that is caused by different thoughts, looking at those thoughts. If the thought causes despair, if the thought causes distraction and delaying the things that are good and important, and if the thought causes a person to destroy, just know the source of that thought is from Shaitan. Okay, so it's the 3 Ds. Despair, right? I'm going to lose hope in God. I'm going to lose hope in myself. Distraction. I'm going to just look in every other direction and forget why I'm here to do what I set out to do. Or destruction. I'm going to destroy something that's good. The way to solve the problem is destroy it. Those thoughts, destroy, despair, distract, they come from Shaitan. So, and he only does that because he knows there's so much good that's waiting for you if you just go ahead and overcome him and do the thing that's good for you in terms of your worship. So I hope that helps, inshallah.
MashaAllah, I think that was very helpful, and I really like the 3 Ds that you mentioned. It's a really great thing to keep in mind for all of us. I'm going to combine 2 questions together, just based on what you were saying as well. We had Sister Humaira asking, I'm finding hope to be such a powerful emotion that can activate us. Can you share your personal relationship, I'm guessing, with hope, and ways how you can nurture this emotion? And as well, earlier, Sister Nicole had mentioned that what if the distractions are things of this world, like death, and you see people are lonely, and every day you wake up and you see bad things happening, like the earthquake and shootings. My heart hurts. That's the distraction of which makes her heart hurt, and because of that, it makes her scared for children and others. So, kind of answering this, and as well in relation to hope.
Okay, so for the first one, in terms of hope, nurturing hope within ourselves, that I am as the Hadith Qudsi, I am as my servant thinks I am. Allah says this to us, like, I am as you think I am. So it's really, I want to say that we experience God with the opinion of God that we have. And one of the things that helps us to better our opinion of God is actually knowing about his beautiful names and attributes, and studying those names and attributes, and connecting to those names and attributes, and calling on those names and attributes. So the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, studying them and reading about them is something that really helps us to have hope. Also, something that a lot of American Muslims don't do enough of is to study their aqidah well. So aqidah is what we believe, right? So the 6 pillars of Iman, this is what we believe. And as it relates to the divine decree, right, destiny, as it relates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, as it relates to the scriptures that have been revealed, and the prophets and their stories, when we study what we believe, I have found for myself, even at a very basic level, a basic aqidah class increases your hope, because it's a constant reminder of who is God. And it's, one of the things that's really important in studying aqidah is that he has attributes that are called sifat al-salbiyah. So there are attributes about him that are really important. They're for us to, as an American Muslim community especially, is recognizing what and who he is not in order to affirm who he is. And this is a really significant part of us conceptualizing the tests in the world. Like when we look at, for example, in this story of Surat al-Kahf, Musa alayhi salam goes to Khidr, and Khidr, there's all these events that make no sense to him. Okay. Why is Khidr, who is this wise person who was chosen by God and is given special knowledge, why does he have a child killed? Right? Like, this is something that is unfathomable according to the law, right? And yet, and yet there's a wisdom behind it that Musa alayhi salam doesn't have an understanding of. Why does he destroy a boat? Right? Why does he build a wall? So there's these elements that he doesn't understand, and afterwards Musa Khidr tells him, like, you were not able to keep patience with me, so we're going to have to part ways. But essentially what we find in those stories too is an analogy for us. And one of the analogies that we take from it is that there are things in this life that we don't understand. Why do small children, for example, perish in an earthquake? Why do tyrants, for example, seemingly live so well? And there are some theological explanations for this, but at some level, a person may wonder, okay, so why does this happen? Why does God allow these things to happen? And this is the existential question about the problem of suffering. When we go back and learn about God's beautiful names and attributes, and we learn about how He is eternal. There is a beginninglessness to Him. There is an endlessness to Him, and nothing in creation can be described in that way. That His knowledge is beginningless and endless, right? And so, the idea that this conversation was destined in pre-eternity is not something like our minds can wrap ourselves around. So learning about God and who He is something that helps us to reconcile some of the things that otherwise they would be irreconcilable for us, if we're just looking at the world and cause and effect. When Musa alayhi salam when the wisdom is revealed to Musa alayhi salam about why Khidr did what he did, everything makes perfect sense. Everything has perfect wisdom. Everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. But that was only because Khidr alayhi salam revealed that wisdom to Musa alayhi salam. In the world, we know that all sorts of things are going to happen in this world. This life is a test, and there's tribulation, and there's also an afterlife where people are rewarded and others are punished. And this gives us some of an explanation. It's not the whole explanation of everything and all the details, but we're not given access to the understanding of why did this person and that thing and this. What we are responsible for in front of God is how we respond to the test. We're not responsible for the test itself. We are only responsible for the response. And this is a blessing for us in the sense that I can have like concern for everyone in the globe. I can have, my prayers are for everyone in the globe. And for all of humanity, and for the suffering that exists everywhere. But Allah will only ask me about what I had control over and access to, my immediate choices. So my circle of concern and my circle of influence are not the same. They will never be the same. My circle of concern will always be much more vast, and my circle of influence is the only thing that Allah will ask me about. So that's important in terms of just refocusing ourselves. And in terms of getting distracted by the bad news, one of our teachers said that if the news makes you feel despair and feel a loss of hope, then turn off the news. Turn off the news. I don't know if also, in the times that we live in, literally in the single moment, we can receive bad news from every single country around the world all at the same time. I don't know if any other human population in any other century had that kind of access, and if that's even natural. So I want to say, like, when they talk about taking care of your heart and having time for yourself and creating boundaries, one of these boundaries is if you are being consumed by bad news, you need to turn it off and you have to take a break from it. There are people who see the news and they are not consumed from it. It does not cause them to lose hope. It does not cause them to think about the world and or their existence in a negative way. So maybe they can consume, or they're in a place where they can actually receive that news. But if you're in a place when you receive that news, you find yourself unable to do the basic things you need to do, like get up and pray, or take care of your family, or go to work, then it's important to, this is having a really negative effect it's almost for you, you're experiencing as the news is almost like negative waswas from shaitan, right? That's how the heart is receiving it. It's like the world is bad, everything is bad, everything is going to be bad, their suffering will continue, there's no point to the suffering. This is what shaitan will say in the middle of the news, and that's why it's pulling the person down. Natural empathy, by the way, there is like, all of us feel sad and have grief when we receive any kind of bad news, but I don't think that we were ever created to receive all the bad news from every single place in every single city in every single country in every single context in the world all at the same time. That's not, this is a modern technology issue, and the same technology that we use to turn it on, that does this, that can overwhelm a person, we have the power to turn it off and say, I'm going to focus on my circle of influence right now, which is my family and myself and my heart and the things that God will ask me about on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and everything else I will pray for, I will donate for, but I need to keep my heart healthy so that I can continue to be undistracted in the way that I worship God.
Jazakallah khairan, Shaykha Muslema, for that great comprehensive answer and that guidance and wisdom about turning off the news. I think it's something really important that we all need to learn, how to protect our hearts from these technologies, mashallah. And I wanted to share these comments. Everyone really enjoyed the spiritual vacation, prayer being a spiritual vacation, and thanking you for sharing that. And mashallah, we have comments pouring in, thanking you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. And as Sister Nicole said, she will reduce her news time. May Allah continue to bless you and protect your family, inshallah. So Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykha Muslema. It was a pleasure and a blessing to have you join us today. And I know you're very busy. It was very last minute, so we really appreciate you taking this time and really blessing us with your knowledge today. And I pray you have the best of luck with your endeavors, inshallah.
Barakallahu fikum. Thank you so much. An honor to be here. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum, inshallah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All right, alhamdulillah, what a beautiful session that was. We have comments still coming in, such rich gems to take away from this talk, mashallah. Thank you once again, Shaykha Muslema. May Allah place hope firmly in our chests. I really love all these comments that are coming in. If you want to follow Shaykha Muslema, you can follow her on Facebook and Instagram at Purmul, inshallah. And you can keep up with their work at the Majlis as well, inshallah. And another reminder about our Ascent After Anguish reflections on the Isra Mi'raj journey tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern in just 3 hours, inshallah. So we just got a glimpse into an experience of the Mi'raj and the prayer being revealed and praying being our personal Mi'raj, but what happened to Prophet Muhammad before the Mi'raj, during and after. Tune in tonight to find out, inshallah. At 8:30 p.m. If you haven't RSVP'd yet, you can go to celebratemercy.com/Isra to RSVP. As well, we have collectively raised 195K in 1 week for earthquake response for the devastating tragedy that happened in Turkey and Syria, in collaboration with Yasin Tiru and Syria Relief and Development. So if you want to donate to this cause, if you want to support this cause, Brother Yasin is in Turkey right now, launching emergency soup kitchens and providing medical support. So you can go to launchgood.com/soup to add to this cause, inshallah. And as well, this week is Isra Mi'raj Salawat Week here at Celebrate Mercy, where we are hoping to unite hearts worldwide for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we're asking you all, how many salawats can you recite in this final week of Rajab? How many have you recited? How many will you recite in these final days? You can go to celebratemercy.com/salawat to pledge your salawat for this final week, inshallah. As well, we have our kids series finale, 7 Heavens, 8 Prophets, a journey through the Mi'raj, happening tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. Even if your kids have missed all the other sessions, join us tomorrow for sure, because it is a Isra Mi'raj celebration for the kids. So make sure you tune in if you have kids, inshallah. As well, we are hiring full-time, part-time, and internship roles, especially with our Ramadan programming coming up, which I advertised throughout this program. So if you're interested to work with Celebrate Mercy, go to celebratemercy.com/careers. There's social media positions, marketing positions, programs positions, and a new position that was added today to be a Celebrate Mercy live host. We do a lot of online programming, and we do need more hosts, inshallah. So if you are interested, or if you know anyone who would be a good candidate, definitely refer them to celebratemercy.com/careers and have them sign up and apply for the position rather, and we'll be in touch with them, inshallah. A final reminder about tonight's webinar. I hope to see you all in 3 hours, inshallah, for our Ascent After Anguish reflections on the Isra and Mi'raj program happening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. If you enjoyed today's webinar, give this video a like so it gets recommended to more people and more people enjoy our programs, and as well subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you never miss a video from us, inshallah. Hope to see you all within the next 3 hours for our Isra and Mi'raj webinar. Otherwise, tomorrow night for our kids' Isra and Mi'raj celebration, or next week for Friday Gems. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.